What is up, guys? I'm here. Welcome to Hammer Talk, and I am here with my first guest star for 2017. Now, she is an actress who is best known, and you might recognize from roles such as Azumanga Daioh, One Piece, Noir, Martin Sassanadashiko, Angelic Layer, Fullmetal Alchemist, but her breakthrough role, she's played it in both anime and live action, is Asuka from Neon Genesis Evangelion. Please welcome Tiffany Grant.
Hello, I'm very glad to be here. I wish I had played Asuka in live action. I don't think I'd be a very believable 14-year-old girl, though. I mean, my voice. I can be 14 forever with my voice, but in the TV series and the movies, I did it.
Yes, I remember that. And I also
Yeah, but not live action. No. I wish there were live action.
I wish there was.
I can be my own live action Asuka.
That would be pretty amazing. And you've actually and you've almost played a close to live action version of Asuka. You've played her in like conventions though. You've cosplayed her.
Oh, okay, yeah, I have done that. Yeah, I used to be kind of notorious or famous, whichever you like, for showing up at conventions dressed as Asuka. That was more like in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s. I don't really do it anymore, but I did back in the day. So I give you that. I'll count that. Sure, I was live action Asuka. I wasn't 14 though.
That's fantastic. That's no problem. So on to the first question I ask every voice actor.
Goodness. I'm ready.
Okay. How did you get started in acting?
Well, I refer to acting as a congenital disorder. I think it's sort of like a birth defect that you're born with that just compels you to pursue a ridiculous profession. And I guess I've been acting about as long as I can remember. I did a school play in second grade, The Shoemaker and the Elves. I was an elf, and just kind of, I guess I was hooked at that point, and I did theater all through school, in college, local community theaters, and then my actual first paid acting job was in anime almost 23 years ago, February of 1994.
Fantastic.
So,
and
yeah.
And what was that acting job that you did?
Oh, well, my first anime, I don't know if it was ever released down under. It's a show called Guy Double Target. It's just a 2-episode OVA, and I'm afraid it has naughty bits in it, so not suitable for our younger audiences. But I was just very excited to get paid for an acting job, I'll say that.
And that's fantastic. And what was it like doing that role?
Well, I mean, honestly, I was young, and like I said, I was very excited to be paid for an acting job. Really, I had wanted to pursue voice acting. I had absolutely not a clue as to how one might do such a thing. But when I was young, I had a tape recorder that I used to carry around all over the place, and I would write these sketches and do characters and everything, and I didn't know that I was voice acting at the time, but I guess I was. And so when this opportunity came up for me to go to this audition, I was very excited, and I was sort of hooked on it immediately. I loved voice acting right away, and I've just been fortunate that people keep out to do it, and they keep paying me to do it too, which is even better.
That's fantastic, and that's really the main thing. You gotta love what you're doing as well.
Oh yeah, for sure, and it's definitely. Once I started doing it, I realized that this is really what I love doing. You know, a lot of people, they really gravitate more towards maybe doing on-camera work, which I do from time to time, but it's certainly not my favorite. Or live theater, which is really great. Live theater is like nothing else, and I have to say I did really enjoy that. But voice acting for me is really where it's at. I love it.
Right, fantastic. And if you weren't particularly drawn to voice acting, where would you see yourself doing if you weren't drawn to like voice acting? Would you still go on to do more live action work or even more musical theatre work?
Well, I never really did much musical theater. I'm not really an accomplished singer. Yeah, well, I think if the acting thing never happened or anime never happened, if anime never happened, I feel like I would still be doing some kind of voiceover work, which I do. I do other type of stuff. I do any acting job. So whatever they are, I'm always up for doing them. Commercials or educational films, anything like that. I've done a couple of video games. So, yeah, I would still have been pursuing various forms of acting. I've also done quite a bit of writing in the form of script adaptations for various anime, where I get the translation and then I adapt that script for dubbing. So that's another one of my jobs that I do. I think I would still be, acting and writing in some format if I'd never gotten to voice act in anime.
Right, fantastic. And with the role that you've received in the past, or that you currently get, do you have like an idea of what the series is about, or what character that you're playing is all about, or is it just like walking up to a Jack in the Box, like not knowing what to expect?
I love that description of a Jack in the Box. Most of the time, it's like that. Honestly, I have no idea what the show's going to be about. Sometimes I don't even know what the show is until I get there. I usually don't know anything about the character at all, so it's all a big surprise. But maybe oddly, I don't know. Maybe it's not odd at all, but I think it might seem a little weird to people that that's actually something that I love about it. I love that aspect of going into the unknown and not knowing what it is, and we're going to create something right now. I think that's fantastic. I love the freshness of it. Traditionally, when you're training to be an actor, and in most forms of acting, there's a great deal of study that goes into it, and rehearsal and memorizing and all of that, which is an important part of the acting craft. But in voice acting, everything is just happening right now. You're seeing the script right now, the performance is happening right now, and it forces you to make these really quick decisions about how the character is going to be portrayed, and I think that is very exciting. I like that.
That's fantastic. And with roles that you play, how do you prepare for the roles that you're playing? Like, how do you get inside the character or characters that you're playing's head? How do you try to get inside their head?
Well, normally the first thing I would do is when I go into the studio, I'll have a chat with the director about the show. They'll give me some information on what the show is about, generally like a synopsis of the show. And then as we go through the scenes, because of course we're just going to see the scenes that my character's actually in. We don't just sit there and go, oh, let's watch all 26 episodes of this series. We don't have time to do that. So they'll inform me about that particular scene. Well, what's happening now in this episode? What are these characters doing? And then also more fine-tuned, specifically my character. Who is this person or animal or creature or whatever it is? What is their deal? Is the show, is it set in a school? Is it a comedy? Is it a romance? Is it a drama? How old is the character? So all of those things, and I don't know, I guess it's like a voice acting computer or something where I input all the data and then the voice just comes out of my mouth. So I look at the character because we're watching it while we're dubbing it. So I'm looking at it. I've absorbed as much information as I can about the situation and the character, and then I'm just on. I'm doing it. So I think a lot of it is maybe cumulative experience, just the background of doing this so many hundreds and hundreds of times. I think a lot of it is that.
Right. And I just love that description about basically it's just like a voice acting computer inside your head. I'm just picturing right now in the future, if robots are made at some point, you just input that information into and go input information right through, process right into actor's head.
Oh, I know. I mean, at some point, I think the directors would love to be able to hire androids or robots or something so they wouldn't have to deal with actors because we are all crazy. I think they'd rather not have to deal with us, honestly. But for right now, they kind of have to.
Well, you never know, and of course, having an actual voice actor in the room is the best thing. It's better than having an android.
I think so. I mean, I'm really biased though because I do, like to pay my bills. It is good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, on to a few of the roles you played. A bit of interesting trivia, in fact. The first anime that I watched you played in was in fact Angelic Layer and Azumanga Daioh.
Okay.
What was it like doing those shows?
I'm sorry. What about? I missed that. I was getting all excited, so I couldn't hear you.
So the first anime that I ever watched you play in.
Yeah, Angelic Layer and Azumanga Daioh. But then the question.
What was it like? What was it like doing those shows?
Here's the funny thing. Those two shows have a very odd connection that a lot of people don't know about. And show that I did scripts for back in 2003. And I talked to a lot of people who do script adapting, and I think it's pretty common that when we're sitting at home and writing the scripts, and you have to perform the dialogue out loud to see if the dialogue, if what you've written, if it's going to fit into the mouth flaps, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I was working on Angelic Layer, and the actor who did the main character, Misaki, in Angelic Layer was Jessica Boone. And so when I was at home typing on my Angelic Layer scripts, I was doing my Jessica Boone impression. Calrain in Azumanga Daioh is my Jessica Boone impression. So that is the weird connection. I went into audition for Azumanga Daioh, and I don't remember if we were still doing Angelic Layer or if we had finished it, because a lot of this is very overlapping, that we're working on, 2 different shows or 3 different shows all at one time. And I had auditioned actually for 2 different characters. The first thing I auditioned for was Miss Yukari, the scene where she's riding her bicycle and she's late to school because she's very irresponsible. And then the other character that I auditioned for, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. The really, the crazy one, the one who's always getting in trouble and she has to stand out in the hallway with the buckets, is that Tomoko?
I believe that is, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, but a friend of mine had read the manga, and he was like, "Oh, that's definitely the character that you're going to play. It totally suits you. That'll be, your character." So I read for those 2 characters, and I started to leave, and then the script writer for that show. The script writers are almost never at the auditions, by the way. It's usually just the director and the sound engineer. But the script writer was there, and Mike, the writer, he leaned over and he said something to Don Rush, the director, and so they told me, "Oh, no, go back in the booth." And they pulled up this scene for Calrain. And the other scenes that I read, I had done 2 or 3 takes, so, try it like this, try it like that, okay, whatever. But they pulled up a scene with Calrain in it, and again, I had never seen Azumanga Daioh before, so I didn't know anything about the characters, but I saw the character. They played the scene, and then I auditioned for the character. I don't even know what scene it was, but I did the scene one time, and they said, "Thank you." And that was it. And then I was Calrain.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was literally my Jessica Boone. I don't think I was intentionally thinking, "Oh, I should do my Jessica Boone impression." But that's what it is. That's what it is. So if you listen to those shows sequentially, you will see what a terrible Jessica Boone impression I do.
But did you ever get any sort of compliments or feedback from Jessica Boone herself, working with her?
I don't even think she knows that story. I don't think she does, honestly. I don't know if she's ever heard that story before, but yeah, that's where it came from.
Well, that's fantastic. And as you were mentioning about before, you being a scriptwriter and everything, you've written scripts for several shows that you've worked on, as well as voice acts in those shows as well. What's it like having to do script writing and doing the voice acting at the same time?
Well, I mean, obviously, the script writing happens before. So in those cases, I am extremely knowledgeable about the show because of all the research that I've had to do. And obviously, I've watched the whole thing and I've written the script. So in those cases, obviously, I'm very informed about the characters before I'm doing them. The funniest part about that, and again, I've had so many people agree with me on this, is that when you've written the script and you go in and do a part in that show, and then you do a line and the line doesn't fit because it's too long or it's too short or something, that's really embarrassing. You'll just start saying something like, "Who writes this crap? This script is terrible," But so that is a little weird. But then I've also written scripts for shows that I am not in. I mean, usually, the script is written and then the show is recorded later, so I don't necessarily know that I'm going to be in the show or not while I'm doing the scripts. I don't know that. Or sometimes I might have written some of the scripts and we record that, and then when I'm writing the remainder of the scripts, I do know that I'm in it. And it's always fun when I know who the actors are, because then I'm doing my impressions of them. I'm sure they're all awful, but, that's what I'm doing.
Right, that's fantastic. Now we've actually just got our first comment from a listener here, and this is from Davin Street, and he says, "This is great. Tiffany's the best."
I love him. Him, is it, what was it, Devin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Davin Street, that's him.
Oh, okay, well, he's awesome. I love him. He's my new best friend.
That's
I love coming down to Australia. I've done a bunch of conventions down there, actually. I was just there the last time in September.
Yeah, yes, okay, so let's just go into this pretty quickly. So, now, you have mentioned before that you've been to Australia quite a few times, in fact. When was the first time you came to Australia?
It was in 2005. I'm thinking it was around maybe like August or so, maybe like August or September. Anyway, but I mean, the weather was still quite nice because it was in Sydney and not in Melbourne. I'm sorry. But you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Anyway, yeah, so that was our first time. And the funny thing is that in Australia, it's the only country outside of Japan where Evangelion ran on regular television.
Wow.
So Evangelion had a really big impact on the anime fandom and anime watchers in Australia. And it's, of course, it's a popular show. It's a big cult hit in a lot of places, but it really is a bigger deal, kind of, or at least it was. I mean, it's been a long time now since it was on TV down there, but that was a really shocking experience for myself and my husband, Matt Greenfield, who wrote and directed and produced the TV series Evangelion, because we were not used to that. I mean, we would go to cons and people liked Evangelion, but it was like every single person in the audience had seen it and they all watched it on TV. So that was kind of a crazy thing for us when we come down there. It's very nice. It's a nice reception.
That's fantastic, and it's really great to hear that Australia has got such a big following for a big show such as Evangelion and such. And an interesting fact, Evangelion did actually air on Adult Swim in Australia at that time. I remember seeing promos and such for it, but back then I didn't watch Evangelion around then until about a couple of months ago or something.
Yeah.
But
it was on around 1999, I think, in Australia, 98, 99. It was something like that. It was quite a long time ago.
It was definitely a long time ago.
Yeah, it did eventually run on TV in the U.S. in about 2005, but it was not on just regular broadcast television. It was on Cartoon Network.
Right.
So it wasn't just on like a regular television station that every person gets automatically in their homes for free. So that's kind of the big differentiation with Australia. and the Ava fans. So thank you to Madman.
That's no problem at all. And going on to like your experience in Australia, what was like your Australian experience like, and what is it that keeps you going back to a lot of conventions, particularly ones in Australia?
Yeah, well, I love conventions. I just did one this past weekend in New Jersey, which it's winter right now. It snowed most of the time I was there, and I don't even know in centigrade. I can do Celsius on the plus side, but on the minus side, I don't know. It was like the wind chill factor was like 1 degree Fahrenheit, which is like minus a lot in Celsius. It was cold. It was cold. But I love meeting the fans and talking to people and getting their feedback on stuff. It's just really fun for me. I love going to conventions. I've been doing it for almost 20 years, going to conventions, and I've done over 250 conventions. In fact, my 250th convention was the Madman Anime Festival.
Wow.
Yeah, in Melbourne. So that was my 250th last year.
That's
and
fantastic.
Everybody's just so nice. Everybody's really great. I love doing conventions. It's one of my favorite things.
That's fantastic. And as you just mentioned before, your 250th anniversary was the Madman Anime Festival in Melbourne. What was that experience like?
Well, I've been to Melbourne. I think I've done 3 conventions in Melbourne. That one was really fun. It was Madman's very first show that they put on, and had a tremendous response. It was really, really great. We had a fantastic time there. It was really good, and I can't wait to come back. I've done conventions now in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and in Perth. And I would love to come back to any of those places, or I would especially love to get to go to some place new, like Adelaide or Gold Coast, Darwin, any place I haven't been. I would love to go to all of the places. Even Tasmania, I think they have a convention there.
I think so. I think they do have a convention down there.
I would go.
That's
I would definitely
fantastic. And this is like something I always like try to find out with like voice actors I interview and such. If they've been to Australia before, like I'm sure that you know, with going to Australia multiple times, you've been exposed to the culture we have in our country, like from the kangaroos, even to the food that we have in Australia, particularly Vegemite. Have fans at conventions ever like exposed you to any of the culture we have in Australia? In particular, like have you, or like here's some Vegemite and such?
Oh gosh, I have to tell you, I cannot stand Vegemite. I really can't. I did try it, of course, the first time I was down there. I will share with you one of my deep, dark secrets. In the late 80s, I used to live in the UK, and I was a raging Neighbours fan. And so my last trip to Melbourne, I did the Neighbours tour.
Wow.
I actually did. I was the only American there. It was pretty funny. But back when I was watching it in the 80s, this was all like Scott and Charlene's wedding and all of that. It was so huge in the UK at that time. It was enormous. Anyway, so yes, there's my deep, dark, dirty secret. Tiffany Grant is a Neighbours fan. Oh, the shame.
There is no shame in that. That is fantastic.
Yeah, we went to Ramsay Street. We really did. It was very cool.
Wow, that's amazing. And I've actually got a bit of a secret to explain myself as well. You explained that you can't stand Vegemite. I lived in Australia my entire life and such, and I honestly can't stand the stuff myself. I just think it's disgusting.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a, campaign to try to get people to eat it back during the war. Like, eat this, it's nutritious. I mean, it's like the worst tasting thing of all time, but like, eat it or you'll die. That's the big marketing campaign. If you think of it like that, well, gosh, eat Vegemite or my other choice is death. Okay, well, why not then?
But at least we've got the other side of that of the Australian food equation, which is Tim Tams.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can't eat them anymore. Sadly, I can't do gluten. Can't do any of the wheat flour, and I can't do dairy either. So sad for me. So sad, no Tim Tams. But
you know, I can just picture you like maybe breaking into like one of your characters after tasting like Vegemite or Tim Tam or something, like thinking like what Asuka would say if she tasted that stuff or something.
Oh yeah. Well, I think Asuka would definitely enjoy some Tim Tams, and I think she would not want to share them with Shinji. Like, you know, stupid Shinji, get your own Tim Tams. You know, it would be on. She would not be sharing her Tim Tams with anyone. Now, if it was Kaori would totally share her Tim Tams with Miss Sakaki, because that would be all good. Miss Sakaki. Oh, that was very unhealthy.
That's fantastic. Now, and of course, speaking about Evangelion, that is your biggest role to date as Asuka from Evangelion.
I would say so. Yeah.
How did you get to play in Evangelion?
Oh, that's a very weird story. I had been voice acting for about 3 years at the time when Matt Greenfield started producing the English version of the TV series. And unbeknownst to me, there had been quite a series of auditions for most of the major roles, you know, Shinji, Misato, Rei, and so on. And I didn't even know that was happening. And I was working fairly regularly by that time, and I sort of became aware coming into the studio, oh, what's this show? Oh, what is that you're working on over there? That's interesting. And so I was kind of annoyed. Like, well, there's some new show that you're working on, and why am I not in it? You know, that's all I wanted to know. And people who have seen Evangelion will recall Asuka actually does not appear until episode 8. And back in those days, we would only record 2 episodes at a time because it was the time of ye olden video cassette tape. And that is what was on one cassette tape, 2 episodes. So they were recording it like that, and I went into Matt Greenfield's office, and I wanted to know, hey, there's some new show you're working on. How come I'm not in that? Can I like do some background stuff or do some bit parts? And he refused. No, you can't do that. And I was very, very annoyed, as you can imagine. And he said, well, look, you have a part. There's a part that you're going to be playing in it. She just hasn't come into the story yet. And he had an Asuka and a Rei figure on top of a filing cabinet in his office, and they were flanking a Gamera figure. It sort of looked like here was this big turtle, and then Asuka and Rei were his bitches. You know, they were all like snuggled up next to him, like, oh, Gamera, we love you. Anyway, so he points to that, and he goes, oh, that girl there in the red outfit, that's your character. And I was like, okay, whatever. Clearly, it's not a major character. She isn't in the show yet. Fine, be that way. You can see I'm very much like Asuka, right? Well, anyway, also unbeknownst to me, people who were working around the studio kept coming into Matt's office and saying, hey, so Tiffany is playing Asuka, right? And the truth is I never actually auditioned to play Asuka, other than just like being a Tiffany Grant. I guess that was my audition. The like, surprise, Tiffany is Asuka. And then in a weird coincidence of fate, I also spoke German, and the character is from Germany. And that just happened to work out very, very well also. So I did not know for actually many years about all of this, that there had been these auditions that I never went to, and the reason I didn't go to them was because I was already designated. I was the designated Asuka. So that's really how it kind of all went down. And so turns out she's actually pretty badass. That's what happened. And I've enjoyed it ever since. I'm glad that I'm playing Asuka. I don't think I would have wanted to play anybody else.
That's fantastic. And it definitely seems like you were definitely born to play that role. Just as like, you know,
for sure.
just as like, you know, Robert Downey Jr. is born to play Iron Man, and
Oh, yeah.
and Hugh Jackman is born to play Wolverine as well.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think those are fair assessments.
Definitely.
For sure.
And it's interesting on how you spoke about like you speak German of course in English,
Yeah.
and and I was looking up on about Evangelion, and it said you wrote scripts for your character for both the English and the German dialogue. Is that true?
Well, okay, for the TV series, all of Asuka's dialogue in German. I did write that. We tried to stick with some of the Japanese. My counterpart, the original Asuka, Yuko Miyamura, she doesn't speak German, and she kind of did like a little crash course to try to better herself in that. It's actually something she and I have discussed this many times, but that was something that she was really wary about because she didn't speak German, so she had to just kind of try to do her best. But some of the parts, I either couldn't understand what she was saying, or maybe it wasn't real German. Maybe it was like flippity flobbin florbin. I don't know. So we stuck with the parts that we could understand, and then I just kind of had to fill in the rest, like the phone conversation that when Asuka is talking to her stepmother on the phone. And then the other thing that we did is when she gets mad at Shinji, which is obviously not, he's an idiot, we decided it would be fun that whenever she got mad at him, she would swear at him or yell at him in German. So that was kind of a fun little extra thing we did. And we didn't change anything that she said. Whatever she was hurling, the insults or the epithets she was hurling at Shinji, deservedly so, I might add, we just decided that it would be fun if she did that in German.
Right.
So that was, it was a fun little extra thing that we got to add in there.
That's fantastic. And of course, a bit of an interesting factor that I came across here with Evangelion, it was particularly the end of Evangelion movie. A bit of an interesting point I found here was that you commented on the final scene of the film where the director had described it as like morning sickness. How did you interpret
I know, well, that was a popular theory many years ago, was that, well, maybe she had, because people didn't really know, like, what is the end of that movie and what's going on there. I always thought that was an interesting theory, although horrible. I don't really think that that's what it was, but that, it was a popular theory back when the movie came out. It was very hotly discussed in all corners of the globe, what on earth was, what was meant by the scene and what was happening. But, I don't think that was probably it.
Right.
But it was a fun theory at the time.
Right. What was your interpretation of that scene yourself?
Well, it was hard for me to say because when I was recording it, I didn't know the whole backstory on it that I learned about later on from Miyamura. And I don't know. It was really hard for me to decide what she meant. She was kind of almost catatonic, though. And so, when she just said, disgusting, or it's disgusting, I guess I just generally felt like it was about the whole situation, because it was pretty bleak. Honestly, basically everyone died. So, I just interpret it as kind of being about their situation that they were in. Now, Miyamura said that they had a really difficult time, or director Ono had a difficult time trying to figure out exactly how he wanted to end that movie and what the dialogue should be, because I guess he wasn't really firm on exactly what it should be. He, at one point, had Megumi Ogata, who plays Shinji, straddling Miyamura, like choking her, which is exactly what's happening on the screen, to try to figure out like how she would sound or what she should say. So all of that was really weird. But he ended up saying to Miyamura that, imagine if you were home alone and you were asleep in your bed and an intruder breaks in and he's standing there in your room and he could do anything to you, and how do you feel about that? And Miyamura said, disgusting. And so that's the last line of the movie, and that's why it is that, because of that whole scenario thing that he described to her.
Right.
And that's actually where it came from, but see, I didn't know that whole build-up to it at the time.
Right.
I just knew all of the theories on the interwebs.
Mm. Right, because my interpretation of it was kind of like almost what you were describing just there, about like because of everything that they had gone throughout the entire film and such, and coming to that point, they realized, oh my god, what has happened and such. That was really my interpretation from it anyway, but yeah, it's really open to debate. And an interesting point here from, we actually got a comment here from Davin Street again. Hi, Davin.
Oh.
And he actually says, and it actually says about End of Evangelion, he says, even the actors who don't know what the F happened in EOE, that's so perfect.
Oh yeah, listen, I first watched End of Evangelion at home by myself. I had an illicit fan sub copy videotape, and I, made the horrible mistake of watching it at home alone. It was very sad. I was getting things at my television that were very unkind towards Shinji, who's an idiot. I was very angry with him. Why don't you get off your ass and help me, you idiot? You know, I'm yelling at the TV as if, you know, I can affect the movie, or as if I am really Asuka. But, you know, like I said, all actors are pretty weird.
Right. Well, that's fantastic.
As soon as they can replace us with androids, it's totally happening.
But you never know. But it's not the future yet, so let's not go that far.
Yeah, I hope we don't get replaced while my career is still happening.
That's definitely true. And speaking on Evangelion, did you ever think that you would become so well known for Asuka, or Evangelion would have such an influence on anime?
Oh my gosh, no.
Wow.
I mean, not in a gazillion years. I mean, when we were recording the TV series originally, which they started working on it like sometimes towards like the fall, or I'll say it in not using seasons because your seasons are opposite, but like towards the end of 1996. In the last few months of 1996, they started working on it. I probably started around the beginning of 97, and then I would think we probably wrapped it up, the recording, probably somewhere around the end of 97. So, you know, off and on for about a year, because we would only record like 2 episodes a month. And it was still running on TV in Japan when we started. When it first aired on TV in Japan, it did not air on every TV station, every TV set in Japan. It was on a limited run. And towards the end of that initial run, back in 1995, it started kind of gaining a little bit of buzz. People were talking about it. What's this show? You should check it out. So then they reran the whole series, but it ran nationally. So it was all across Japan. And it was during that run in 1996 that we were actually recording the English language version. So the home video version in English came out before the home video version in Japanese did. So all of that, which is a very long-winded explanation, just to make the point that we did not know. We had no way of knowing what the popularity of the show was going to be. And from my point of view, I don't know, we had worked on other shows before this. I mean, I thought it was a cool show, but when you're in it, when you're doing it, it's so hard to differentiate it, like that it's going to be so much better than this show or that show. You just have no idea how something is going to catch on or not. There's no way to predict that. So it was pretty incredible. I can remember my very first convention that I did, which was in Dallas, Texas, in May of 1997, so almost 20 years ago. And that was, I think when I did that convention, it hadn't come out. My episodes had not yet even come out, because I remember talking to some people at the convention and saying, oh yeah, you know, there was a big backdrop of Evangelion. I would say, oh yeah, that the girl in the red, that's me, you know, but it wasn't even out yet, so we had no idea. We just absolutely had no idea.
Wow, that's amazing. And
yeah,
of course with now of course there's like the final Evangelion movie, which is coming out very soon, part of the Rebuild series.
Oh, soon. You're hilarious, Simon. Hilarious. But continue. Go ahead. You're very optimistic. I like that.
But maybe coming soon. Who knows exactly? But where are you hoping that your character is going to go in the final film?
Oh, I just hope the final film makes sense to me, because I could not understand the last movie. The third movie was so confusing. I don't know what happened. Why is she wearing an eye patch? None of your damn business. Why don't you get any older? It's the curse of the Avas. Who the hell is Mari Illustrious Makanami? No one knows. It's all so mysterious happening. I just want it to all get explained to me. At least sort of explained. I mean, I know that's his thing with Ava, is he doesn't like to explain it, but really, I mean, even for Ava, it's very confusing right now. I just want to make just a little tiny bit of sense. Just a little tiny bit of sense. Then now I'd be very happy with that.
I think that would be the same for all fans, really, because, you know, I mean, when I first watched Evangelion, I mean, half of me was going, oh my god, this is fantastic, and another side was going like, what the hell is going on here? yeah, what's happening? Yeah, I remember, back in those days, I did used to get the videotapes and watch the episodes right before I would go in and record it. And I remember the day before I was going to go in and record the last 2 episodes of the TV series, and I watched it again at home by myself, and I could not believe what I just saw, those last 2 episodes. And I remember that I called Matt Greenfield, the director. I called him on the phone at whatever time of night it might have been. I was like, what the hell was that? What is happening? Are you serious? That's really the end? So, yeah, I was a little, but having had, 20 years to absorb it, I like the way that it ended. I do. I mean, yes, there are parts of it that are not so cut and dried, that people like to debate about what certain things meant or didn't mean. I still like it, and I think it's a good message too, and they've evolved and they've reached instrumentality. Congratulations, it's all happy until the alternate ending of Evangelion, and he just kills everyone. So, TV series, I like the ending better. We'll have to see what happens. I definitely agree on that point as well. I preferred really the ending to the TV series itself more than End of Evangelion itself. Even though a lot of people say that End of Evangelion was supposed to be the true ending to the TV series in a way, but I like positive endings.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was never intended to be the true ending, and I mean that's not even a point of debate at all. That was never intended to be the ending. I mean, the ending was was on TV. That is the way the story was intended to go, at least the way Anno intended it. Sadamoto did have a little bit of a different ending, if you've read the manga, which was great. But then there was a big backlash, and people were pissed off about the ending. They didn't like it. They didn't understand it. Wah, it's too confusing. Wah, we're all babies. So they complained about the ending of the TV series, and he was like, oh, you didn't like it? Oh, you thought that was confusing? Well, F all you people. I'm going to kill everyone. How's that? How you like that? How you like me now? I'm killing them. So, I mean, that's what they got. It's like they didn't like his show, and they didn't like his story the way he wanted to do it. So, screw you people. I'm just going to kill everyone. And he just killed all of them. And now he's telling the story over again, and different things are happening. So who knows? We don't know what's going on now.
But of course, if it wasn't for Evangelion, who knows where anime would be right now? Because it has made such a big impact on like anime at that time. When it was first
it definitely has. I mean, it was a pivotal show, and it, obviously to me, I think the fact that it doesn't just lay everything out, it isn't a cut and dried, really clear storyline. That's why it's still popular, because people can still fight about it and debate their points of view. And that's when it's really got its hooks in you, is that when people are interested enough in the show and care enough about it that they want to argue about it for hours on end.
And those are really like where the true fans are and such. And in that, when you start getting into such big debates about like a show and such, you know that they really love it a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's great.
Absolutely. And you've also played the character not just in the anime series and the films, but you've also played Asuka in radio shows and in anime made by fans as well.
That is true. A very, very, very talented gentleman here in the U.S. He created this online fan storyline where he did all of the artwork and the animation, and that's been close to 20 years ago that he did that. And he recruited me back in, I don't know, it must have been around 1998 or something like that, to do this fan project for him. Ava R. It's EVA-R. And I said, sure, why not? I was really impressed with his art, and I did that. And he runs my website, actually, so he's still doing that. TiffanyGrant.net. So, yeah, we're still very much connected in that way.
That's fantastic. Now, other roles that you're best known for is One Piece as Najiko, Fullmetal Alchemist as Mada, and Martin's successor. No, I'm sorry if I mispronounced this last part here.
That's okay. It's Martian successor Nadesico.
Right, as
Yes.
Ryoku.
Yeah. And a lot of people just refer to it as Nadesico. Like, you don't have to say the whole thing. It's very long. It's a very long title. Yeah, and those were all great shows. They were all really fun. Of course, One Piece is going on forever and ever and ever. Nojiko was really the main character I played, and it's pretty early on in the storyline. She's actually Nami's sister. And then much, much later on in the show, like around episode 370 or something like that, I had a character for a few episodes called Shalria, and she's truly horrible. She's a terrible, terrible person, and she has like other people as her pets. It's terrible.
Wow.
And it was really super fun to play. I just remember that one of her first lines, in reference to a person that she keeps on a leash, who isn't performing in the way that she would like, she says something like, "Oh dear father, this one isn't working, can I get another one?" And that was great. I loved it. She was an awful, awful human.
Wow.
Actually, probably not even really human, but that was super fun.
Probably not human if you act that certain way.
That's true. It's true. But they were from some other land, and I can't remember what their people were called, but they had these bubbles that they wore around their heads so that they wouldn't have to breathe the same oxygen as the regular people. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm just picturing that right now in my head. That's crazy.
They were really awful. That's okay. Don't worry. They get what's coming to them. So, spoiler. Yeah, they end up having to breathe regular air and everything. Marta was great in Full Metal Alchemist. I mean, that's a fantastic show. I love Full Metal Alchemist. That was a really great show. So that's really awesome for you to get to have a part in that. That was really terrific.
Fantastic.
And I know you said something else, but I can't even remember now what you said. So I'm sorry.
You're also mentioning I'm sorry if I get
Oh, Nadesco.
Nadesco, yes.
Right. Yeah, Nadesco. We did that. Was right after Evangelion, and obviously it is kind of a parody of Evangelion, but just more broadly a parody of a lot of the giant robot anime of the 80s and 90s. And that was a show that was hilariously funny and then deadly serious in the very next moment. And I enjoyed working on that tremendously. And myself and Spike Spencer, who's the voice of Shinji Ikari, we were very much cast in our roles in Nadesco as a send-up of the characters we played in Evangelion. So, yeah, it was quite intentional. It's not accidental that, like, oh, those characters seem a lot like Shinji and Asuka. Yeah, we know. It's on purpose.
But it's interesting on how you describe Nadesco, and finally I got the name right.
yeah.
But it's interesting how you describe it as like a parody of like Evangelion, where it starts off humorous and then goes into serious the next minute and such. I thought, it kind of sounds a lot like Deadpool in a way. In that, if for anybody who's ever watched the Deadpool film before with Ryan Reynolds, that basically takes the piss out of a lot of comic book sort of stuff, and One Punch Man as well, where that really takes the piss out of a lot of action anime.
Yeah. I mean, it was intentionally sending up the whole genre, and I liked that aspect of it very much. It was a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. And with One Piece, obviously everyone there's like this huge debate that keeps going on with a lot of fans and such with like the 4Kids version and the Funimation version.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever watch the 4Kids version or meet any of the 4Kids actors?
I think I met doing conventions over the years. I've met so many voice actors from a lot of different places. So I believe that I have met people. And the thing about it is, and I know that fans just want to jump on it and give everybody a hard time, but the main emphasis very often is that the Japanese companies, it's their business and they want to make money. So if they think that they can make money on a show by altering it in a certain way that's going to make it more popular, get it on more TV channels, or sell more toys or something like that, they will totally do it, believe me, in a heartbeat. So it's not like the directors or the actors at 4Kids said, how can we mess up this anime? I know, let's do this. They were very much following a directive and an agreement that was come to. So it's not like they had some grand mission to try to ruin One Piece. It just is a show that wasn't suitable for what they were trying to do to it, because it's a more body kind of adult-ish kind of a show, It's not really a show for little kids that they were trying to turn it into. So I think that they just picked bad material to do what they wanted to do with it. But I can understand that, because it's hundreds and hundreds of episodes, and they just thought, wow, if we can get it to catch on like this, that'll be great. But that did not work. I don't give them a hard time about it. But look, what happened is it ended up getting redone. I got to be in it, and as far as I'm concerned, that makes it all worth it.
That's fantastic. And it's interesting how you talk about the process through like One Piece and such, with like the whole thing that's going on there, because my first experience with One Piece was not from the Funimation version, but it was actually from the 4Kids version, and then I later watched the Funimation version, and I love both versions for very different reasons. But the Funimation version probably just being a little bit, just obviously a little higher up at the top than the 4Kids version. But that's just my opinion on it, though, and I'm just being the middleman here. But
yeah.
But on to like Fullmetal Alchemist with Mada. You played her both in the original series and in the Brotherhood series.
Right.
What was like your favorite to work on personally?
Well, on Brotherhood, I'm barely even in it. I think I did my entire recording for Brotherhood in probably less than an hour. I mean, she's just really hardly in the show. In the original TV series, Marta is this really pivotal, important character who is in the storyline for about 10 episodes, and it's a pretty major part. And if people don't remember who she was the snake Chimera. She's one of the group that Greed frees them, and they have this plan to kidnap Alphonse, and she gets inside of Alphonse, and she rides around in there for a long time, like sort of kidnapping him. But then she's a bad girl with a heart of gold, and Alphonse is able to get through to her, and they have this friendship and so on. So it was a really neat storyline, and it was important for the character of Alphonse ultimately. And also she ends up learning some really important information about some of the other characters in the show that really does move the storyline along. Whereas in Brotherhood, it was like, who's that girl? Oh, she's dead now. It was just, I think I was in 2 episodes of Brotherhood, and it was not much. I mean, it might have been like 20 or 30 minutes I spent recording it.
Wow.
It was not a lot at all. And then she was dead, and I don't think anybody even cared. When she died in the TV series, in the original TV series, when it was airing on TV in the U.S., there used to be a magazine here called Anime Insider, and that month that she died, she got Dead of the Month.
Wow.
So I was pretty happy about that. It was epic. She did die in a really epic fashion. So obviously, if anybody hasn't seen Full Metal Alchemist, I just totally spoiled it that she died. But I really didn't, because if you see how she died, it was pretty damn spectacular. I'll just say that.
Yeah, let's just keep it that way for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. And that actually goes to my question for the fans here. Like, what was your first, like, anime that starred Tiffany Grant that you ever watched before in your life? Leave your answers below in the comments, guys. And also, like, excuse me, with any of the roles that you've done, have you ever watched, like, any of the final products of, like, the work you've ever done before?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest and say I have not watched every single show that I've done. But I have watched quite a lot of them, and I would say for the most part I've been pretty pleased with the way that they've turned out. I think, I came in at a good time in the industry, and for the most part, most of the projects that I've worked on, the people who are doing it, the actors, the directors, the writers, the producers, everybody really cares about it, and they care about the integrity of the projects, and they really want them to be good, and they want them to be a faithful representation of whatever the original intention is for that product. And that's really important to me, especially as a script writer, maintaining that vision and making sure that we're sticking with the original intention of the piece.
Right, and that's really important, especially because, as you said before, you're not just the voice actor, but you're also a scriptwriter as well. So you have quite a bit of responsibility to make the vision of that, and help the vision of that show happen.
Oh yeah, I think so. I take that very seriously when I'm writing scripts on a show. I don't want to phrase anything in a way that it could be misconstrued, that something is meant that isn't really there, so I really try my best to make sure that everything is faithfully executed.
That's fantastic. And we actually just got our next comment here from Davin Street again. Hi Davin, he's on a roll today.
Hey, I'm going to have to come down there and hang out with you. He's my new bestie.
And he says, I first watched Eva in 1997 on SBS, and it's been my favourite ever since. Unit 2 is the best Eva 2. Oh,
yes, of course Eva 2 is the best. I mean, there's no argument there. But so 1997, that answered my question. I knew it was in the 90s. It was a long time ago. In fact, it's so long ago that I was at YCon, which is now sadly deceased, but that was in Perth. I was there 3 years ago, and I was talking to someone at the convention about Evangelion being on TV, and another fan said, "Oh, it was on TV?" So it's now been so long that the people who are in fandom now, they weren't even born when it was on TV. So that made me kind of sad, but then I laughed also. And I probably called him an idiot, but that's to be expected.
Yeah. And also Devon just replied here where he says, just answered your question. There it says, "Oh, I'm going to come down to Australia and be his bestie." He said, "Please do."
Well, look, I would love to come back as often as possible, in spite of the fact that it is a flight that seems to take most of your life to get there.
I know from experience. I mean, I've traveled to... last year was my first ever trip to America, and I can tell you it was a pretty long flight at that. I definitely know the experience.
Yeah, it really feels like you're just on the plane for like a month. I don't know, it seems like such a long time. It's a super, super long time. But then it's worth it. It's worth it to get there.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely worth it. Now, as an actress, what was the most challenging role for you to play?
Wow. Well, you did mention one at the beginning, Noir, and I don't know how much people will be familiar with Noir. It did come out about 15 years ago, and it's a very serious, very dramatic show, as the name implies, Noir. It is a very dark show, and the character that I played, Altena, is sort of a high priestess type character. So you might think, oh, high priestess, well, she sounds like a very, sort of respectable and upstanding person, and she is not at all. She's actually really like the villain of the show. Her very twisted, dark worldview that she wants to subvert the world to her will and make everything to conform to what her vision is of how everything should be, and it's rather frightening. But to me, the aspect of that role that I found to be challenging was just that she was, even though it would seem like her agenda is like really dark and evil, to villains, they don't ever see themselves that way. So they always think what they're doing is justified. But she was not. I wanted to play a villain who was all like, "I'll get you, my pretty," and have the evil laughter and everything. But she was not like that. It was more just very, very cold and calculating and almost like a monotone. She didn't really raise her voice because she didn't need to raise her voice. So she was just very calm and quiet and very focused on what she wanted. So that was challenging to me, to try to just keep her really, really subdued. And I think it's more chilling, if the person who's directing really awful killings and things to be happening is just very, very blasé, very, very calm and unconcerned about it. Yes, well, those people do have to be killed, so you just get on with that. Okay, bye-bye. And I'll have my tea black with 2 sugars, It just, you know what I mean? It's just like so not concerning, I've just ordered some murders, but hurry up with that tea. So, that was Altena.
Wow, that's fantastic. And yeah, that's definitely true in that sense, where you've got where I think the best villains are like the most cold-hearted type villains in shows, essentially. I mean, you've got those types of villains on one scale, and then you've got the Joker from the Batman mythos on the other scale, who's just like full-blown crazy and such, and just goes completely off the rails.
Right, exactly. Where it's like more obvious right from the start that, oh, that guy is super scary.
Yep, right. Definitely. And what's like one character or series you've ever wanted to play or ever wished that you played?
Oh, Wow, all of them, all the ones that I'm not in, and I'm only half joking. I mean, honestly, actors, we think we can do everything, and we want to do everything. There was a show recently I did the scripts for, a show called Parasite the Maxim, which is really, really a terrific anime. It's based on a manga that's almost 30 years old, and really just by far one of the best things I've ever seen. It's really an incredible show. And I was hoping while I was writing the scripts for it that I would be able to do a role in the show, but I did not get to. But I got to work on the scripts, so
Right.
that was still good. I loved it very much, though. I still love that show. I think it's terrific.
Fantastic. And as you were just mentioning about before, with hoping that there's going to be a live-action Evangelion film or series,
Yeah.
especially because with all the news that's been going about with the new Ghost in the Shell movie with Scarlett Johansson and such.
Right.
How do you feel about with Hollywood turning anime into live-action films, considering the previous results we've had, with the Dragon Ball Evolution, which we can all forget about, and Last Airbender and such.
Yeah, I know. Well, and that's technically not an anime, even though it is sort of anime-esque. It's been a little hit and miss with some of them. I mean, obviously, Ghost in the Shell, I haven't seen that yet, so I don't know. The plans for the live-action Eva film, they're currently sort of in stasis. They're not really moving forward at this point. All of the agreements that were negotiated several years ago, which my husband was very involved with, all of those agreements were with Gainax as the licensor, and Gainax was the studio who originally did produce the Eva TV series.
Wow.
However, Studio Kara now owns the rights to Evangelion. So, none of those agreements, I don't think any of those agreements are still standing anymore for the live-action film. So I think they'll just have to go back to the drawing board and start over if anybody's ever really serious about moving forward with that. I mean, it could be great. It could be great. We'll have to see if it will be great, but it could be. I mean, Weta, we're going to do, the production on it. And I have a lot of faith in Weta. I think Weta's pretty damn amazing. So, if they really do it, but, again, all of that stuff that was negotiated, it's by the wayside. So, we'll have to see what happens with it going forward.
Definitely. And that actually leads to my next question, not just for you, Tiffany, but also for the fans out there listening as well. I know everyone's asking for, hopefully asking for an Evangelion live-action film, but here's my question, is what kind of live-action TV series or film series do you want to see turn into an anime or an animated series?
Ooh, that's interesting. I don't know. You kind of caught me off guard with that one. I don't have, a ready-to-go answer for that. I don't know, maybe, I think Doctor Who would be really good.
That was going to be my answer as well.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, really? That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's just kind of the first thing when I let my brain start rolling around in there and running things by it. I mean, they do so many, incredible and amazing things in the show, going all sorts of places, and, and even more so, you can do anything in animation. You have no limitations with animation. They could do anything. So I think that would be really fun.
That would be really fun as well. And I would also really love to see an anime or an animated version of the X-Files, for instance. That would be pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
And interesting bit of trivia, and I'm probably going to get my butt kicked a little bit for saying this, but last year was actually my very first year I've ever watched Doctor Who or the X-Files.
Wow!
Yes.
That's amazing.
I actually started with the Christopher Eccleston series, and I've not stopped watching it since. It's been one of my favorites ever since.
Wow. it's interesting. I mean, I've been watching Doctor Who for a very, very long time, like more than 30 years. And I was thinking it would be kind of fun to maybe go back and, to do an anime with some of the previous Doctors, like Tom Baker or Peter Davison or something like that. I think that would be really fun to do an anime, and you could explore more into those characters, even though the actors, are older and they've moved on. There's no way for them to really reprise those roles, even if you wanted to see, like, some of the untold stories that happened during that time. It's not possible for them to do it, but as an anime, it could work.
Absolutely. That would be amazing. And especially because, Tom Baker, for instance, I mean, he's now voicing on Star Wars Rebels, and David Tennant's voiced in the Star Wars universe as well. So they've stepped into the voiceover world a little bit. Now it's just a matter of getting all, like the previous Doctors, the ones that we still have in the world today, together in one vocal booth and just do their magic, basically.
Yeah.
That would be
I
awesome.
think that would be fantastic.
And on to my other question. What is like the one role that you could relate to as a person out of all the roles you've done as an actress?
Wow. I don't know. There's so many now. That's really difficult to say, actually. Many years ago, my go-to answer for that used to be Becky in Gunsmith Cats, but that is really old, and I don't even think most people would get that anymore. I don't think they would really, I don't think most people would even know what that is now. Gosh. I don't know. I don't know. That's really, really hard for me to say. A lot of the characters are maybe just not really that much like me, but I guess Asuka, in her own weird way, even though our lives are completely dissimilar, but I feel like I relate to Asuka just because she's been with me for so long.
Fantastic. And without getting into any spoilers, like any current or upcoming projects for us fans to know about?
Let's see. Well, I did recently. I did the script for Girls on Panzer, their film, and of course, I reprised my role in the TV series and the OVAs. I played the character Sodoko, or her nickname is Sodoko, even though she hates it. But that's something I worked on recently. And Gatchaman Crowd's Insight, which that was very weird. I played all of these sort of magical type creatures. I don't want to give too much away about what they are, but there are hundreds of them, or maybe thousands, and I did the voice of all of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a show that I worked on last year, and you guys actually had it years ago. I think it came out in Australia in about 2012. It's called Denocoil, and I believe Siren released it down there as a subtitle only, and it actually came out in Japan in 2007. But anyway, we did the dub of it last year, and I just think it's terrific. I don't know if you guys are going to get the dub of it down there or not, but it's a really great show. I loved it so much. It's real life. Like Pokemon Go. That's pretty much like what happened in this show. It's set in the near future, and these kids all use this interactive technology, sort of a virtual reality, where the digital world is overlaying over the real world. Yeah, they did that in 2007, and then in 2016 that became real.
Wow.
Pretty strange.
That's fantastic. And it's interesting how you talk about, like with Pokemon Go. I mean, imagine if they did like a version of Pokemon Go, but it was with Evangelion, for example. That'd be pretty. That would be pretty crazy. And I could just imagine like you playing that game in like full Asuka cosplay. and such.
And trying to kill the angels. Yeah, that would be good.
But that would be pretty awesome if that happened. And final question, what do you think Asuka would say if she saw kangaroos?
If she saw kangaroos, well, it's not like they're mythical creatures. I think she would know what a kangaroo is. Holy cow, those things look delicious! I think Asuka would want to eat one. I think that would be her primary thing. She seems to me like a real red meat kind of gal. I think that she'd like a big old slab of kangaroo steak. I think that's what Asuka would be.
Well, it's actually interesting you say that because kangaroo is actually edible in Australia.
Oh, I know. I've never eaten it, but I know my husband's had it. Not really. I'm not much of a meat eater though, so it does not entice me. Look at this adorable animal. It's also delicious. No, that's not appealing to me. Like a lamb. I'm not going to eat a lamb. Look how cute they are.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. It would just be like people going like, "Oh, let's eat Bambi," and such.
You eat deer as well, you know. Look, they're so gentle and adorable. Let's slaughter one and eat it. I can't get on board for that. It's too difficult for me. Also, one of my things that I'm very involved with is a wildlife hospital. So we actually treat and rehabilitate wild animals. So when you're working with animals and trying to help them recover and release them into the wild, it's really hard to think about devouring them.
I can imagine. Oh man, that's crazy. But that's fantastic, though. Tiffany Grant, thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed it, Simon. I appreciate it. And sorry about my little technical difficulties at the beginning.
It's bound to happen. It's somehow always bound to happen.
Right. Well, thanks very much. Cheers, everybody. And my new best friend, Davin Street. Yeah, rock on.
That's awesome. And any way for the fans to know more about your work?
Well, you can go to tiffanygrant.net. And you can email me. I really do not do social media. I know, because I'm an eccentric, crazy old lady. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. Just check out the website. And I usually try to keep it updated, particularly with the conventions that I'm doing. Sadly, right now, I don't have any lined up in Australia. So, all of the Aussies need to contact their local cons and say, oh, you should invite Tiffany Grant. She would be great. We love her.
That will
get on that.
They will definitely make that happen. But thank you. well, thank you so much. It has been an honor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Simon. I appreciate it.
That's no problem at all. And guys, if you'd like to find out more about Tiffany Grant's work, you can check out her links, which will be down below in the description. And don't forget, subscribe down below to Hammer Talk, as well as check out my links down below in the description as well. And if you guys have any requests for any videos you'd like me to do, interviews, reviews, bonus videos, let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much. This is Simon, signing off.